Today is October the 28th, 2011. I am a targeted individual. The acronym for this type of targeted person is TI. This is a YouTube release, and everything that I'm about to say, to my knowledge, is absolutely true, no matter how unreal it sounds, to the best of my recollection. I have never considered myself, nor would anyone consider me, a conspiracy theory person, or someone that is not rational and reasonable. I'm not entirely sure how long this has been happening to me. It could be up to a decade, but all I know is that several years ago I started getting harassed in a severe manner via a campaign which I believe is an organization operating covertly with high-tech equipment. At first, complete strangers would be saying things about me in a derogatory manner. People that I did not know, as I walked past them on the streets, while I was shopping, at work, and other places. Sometimes it was laughter, but oftentimes it would be belittling comments. At the time, I noticed that I had not actually seen them say these things, but nonetheless, I accepted it to have been actually said. People were following me around because I would see familiar faces in different places, and the coincidence was too great. The harassers would do things as bang on my walls, wake me up in the middle of the night, enter my apartment without breaking in, quote-unquote, as if they had keys to my apartment, move things around, and left items to let me know that they were there. It seemed, at the time, they would be talking through vents and the like to give commentary on what I was doing in my apartment. Initially, I believed there may be cameras and microphones in my apartment, but I could not find any. I believed also at the time that it was a harassment campaign against myself by my neighbors to force me to move out. I could not find any cameras, though I knew somehow I was being watched via the commentary I heard. I was wrong about it being my neighbors because the harassment followed me as I moved about over the years to at least 5 different locations. The harassment also followed me around the country as I traveled on 3 different occasions. Private homes, vehicles, while walking on the street, and apartments alike, they would find a way to harass me using the aforementioned techniques, to my utter astonishment and disparity. I then believed, as any rational person would at this point, that I was insane, that maybe I was schizophrenic, and that the voices and auditory things I was hearing are all in my mind. This went on for several years, as I mentioned, even went as far as forcing myself by circumstance to lose my relationships with a few girlfriends, and even a woman that I had loved. They also harassed me at work, and I began to believe that perhaps my coworkers were part of the conspiracy. Till one day, they started using sleep deprivation, which prevented me from going to work, which caused me to lose my job. This all went on and on till they began sleep deprivation and directed sound weapon torture on me in my own home and every place I went. Mind you, during this time they also continued to conduct all the previously mentioned harassment techniques, including unlawfully entering my home, and they added to the regimen vandalizing my vehicle on 3 different occasions. This is when I realized that I was not crazy, and the people doing this were not just citizens or neighbors because of the type of technology being used on me, and it had to be an organization with vast resources, such as like a government agency. Perhaps our government, the one bound by rule of law, constitutional and civil rights, the United States of America, with a new slogan. I was not sure how or why I could not sleep or how they had accomplished it. I just knew it was so. I went without any sleep, except a few hours here or there, for about 3 to 4 months, maybe longer. It's hard to tell the passage of time when you're sleep deprived to that extent. The directed sound torture, which at the time I believed to be speakers attached to my wall, would be in the form of chanting trying to convince me that I'm a criminal or sexually inadequate, all of which is not true, and that they wouldn't stop torturing me until I falsely confessed, and many other things, up to and including killing myself. I would like to underline that no one is in danger from myself because I am not a violent person, nor have I ever been. During the sound torture, they also played repeated cell phone ringtones, such as the wedding tune, because I had wanted to marry my last girlfriend, and other such ringtones that would seem to come from couches, the wall, the turned-off television, other objects in my home that could not possibly be emitting sound, and they used many other brainwashing techniques. I had not realized at the time it was brainwashing until later I researched it. It seemed truly improbable and even fantastical. It sounded as if people were knocking on my door and were opening the door and invading my apartment while I was home, including banging on the window. Then they appended an even more devious device to the torture. It was a directed sound with high resolution that would vibrate my eardrums, move my eyes by moving the sound, and they even used it to molest my private parts or other organs. They had started using this device at the beginning, but had not realized what it was or what it was doing. This type of weapon is under the category of directed energy weapons. I do have recordings of this sound, but one of the features of the directed sound weapon is that it almost becomes inaudible when it is not directed at you. It is a weapon designed with torturing citizens in mind. The fact that they have to use it in a clandestine manner demonstrates they know they are criminals. I'd go so far as to call these weapons evil. I was immobilized with fear due to the immense nature of the torture being put upon me. I was a prisoner against my will. I continued to be a prisoner, and was, and still am, experiencing extreme duress. During the sleep deprivation and directed sound torture campaign, they were using on me something even more disturbing, insipid, nefarious, and even villainous. One day, the voices that previously done commentary on my actions that I had believed to be coming from vents through the walls and other like mediums started repeating everything that I had thought. If I said I was, quote, really tired and what is happening is unbelievable, unquote, the voice would say something like, quote, I can't believe this guy. He is thinking that he is really tired and it isn't real, unquote. After repeating my thoughts, laughter would be added. This went on for like hours. In my mind, it was a different voice other than my own, saying what I had just thought, but in a different pattern, so I knew it was not my own thoughts. At first I thought, I'm going crazy because of the torture, and that I was just hearing things. I had decided to leave the apartment for much-needed fresh air, but the involuntary thoughts continued. At this point, the torture had been going on for several days, and myself no sleep under extreme duress. This was still in the beginning. I then, with no other good option available to myself, went to the hospital to commit myself under psychiatric care. Even though I know what I was experiencing was definitely not psychosis. I, at the time, was 30-ish when this began, and now older by several years. Schizophrenia rarely develops so late in one's life, and usually isn't so complex to be physical, auditory, and visual. Not to mention, schizophrenia cannot change the real world, lest I changed it myself, such as vandalization of my vehicle and the unlawful entry into my house. When I went into the hospital, they followed me. They began responding to things that I had thought, and even said to me, we are in complete control of your mind, and we can hear everything you think. We can make you do whatever we want. You are our slave. This is, as one can imagine, disturbed me deeply. After several days, I was released from the hospital. They had, quote, allowed, unquote, me to sleep in the hospital, probably to discredit what I had said to the doctors. People in the hospital had said things to me, making it seem that they had, quote, unquote, agents in the ward with me, but now looking back, I realized that even though I heard people saying things in their own voice, that I had not really